is a passionate philosophy professor,
fitness professional,
and motivational speaker. She helps strengthen the body, but she also helps strengthen the mind.
The mind?
The mind.
For well over a decade, she has led philosophy courses within the university system of Georgia.
She leads group fitness classes in Atlanta,
as well as leading one-on-one personal training sessions. Let's all squat wisely with Kristen Hester.
Welcome to another great episode of Squat Wisely. Today we will have a heavy focus on fitness, especially if you are a fitness lover and you've been thinking about going into the fitness industry, either full-time or as a side business. I think you'll really enjoy the dialogue that I'll have with my guest for today. When you work in the fitness industry, you have to, study and take different exams and go through various, certifications. So for my personal training certification, it was a lot of content that I had to study. And the guest for today actually has some cool resources that he is going to talk about that were very beneficial to me during my study time. More so than the financial benefit, fitness is a very rewarding job. As a group fitness instructor, if you're listening and you're a group fitness instructor, you do not make a lot of money teaching group fitness classes. But the people who teach group fitness classes, they aren't teaching it for the money. So I promise you that. There's a lot of work involved with preparing for your classes, keeping your energy up for your classes, keeping, the exercises and stuff fresh so it's not, so boring or the same from class to class. There's a lot of prep time that goes into making those fitness classes great. And the truth of the matter is you really don't make that much money. But it's not about the money when you really think about it for most fitness instructors. It's just the love of seeing people, meet their goals. There are so many people who come to your class. I've had someone recently to tell me, the doctor asked them, what are you doing different? And the only thing different that she was doing was she started coming to my exercise class. The doctor was so impressed. He took her off of her blood pressure medication. And it just goes to show you, when you hear stories like that, where your little 1-hour class had an impact on someone's health or made a difference in them being able to believe in themselves again, that is better than any pay, I feel, monetary anyway, that you could ever receive. It's just a very rewarding experience. And even working one-on-one with clients, it's the same thing. When people are able to push themselves when they thought that they couldn't, it's life-changing. So if you've been thinking about, starting your own business and you already have a love for fitness anyway, then, listen up to my guest for today, because he may give you some great tools that will get your mind going. And you never know, you could have your very own successful fitness business yourself. And even if you're not into fitness like that, even if you're not trying to go into business, you still want to listen to the information that he shares, because he has provided a lot of wisdom and a lot of insight, as every person who comes onto the show always delivers so profoundly, and he is no different. So whether you're into fitness, whether you're into philosophy, I am sure the guest will have something that will be profound and worthwhile for you to listen to. So please stay tuned, because right after this message, my special guest for today will be up next.
Get a world-class motivational speaker to your next event. Kristen Hester offers professional speaking services in Atlanta, Georgia, and beyond. To hire Kristen, visit www.kristenspeaks.com. Kristen.
You are listening to the Squat Wisely podcast, and I'm very excited about our guest today. As many of you guys know, I am a certified personal trainer. I am also a group fitness instructor. To help me out on the personal training side, though, I needed a lot of guidance, and that is how I found out about Mr. Daniel Hile. He has some awesome resources for those that are test takers looking to ace their certified personal trainer exam. Mine in particular was the ACSM exam, and I used his Certified Personal Trainer Exam Prep Study Guide. So I want to introduce Mr. Daniel Hile. I want to learn all about him and all about the cool resources he has in place for aspiring personal trainers. Daniel, welcome to the show.
This is my first podcast, too. I listen to them all the time, but this is the first one that I'm on. So hopefully I can share some insight and give the people a few takeaways that can help them out in their own lives.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about who you are and your connection with fitness.
So my name's Daniel. Grew up here in Maryland, still live in Maryland. I guess the best way to get into how I got into fitness is to start in my childhood. I played sports, just like everybody else, most people, football, soccer, hockey, baseball. But I had asthma pretty bad as a child. So, I'd get one or two plays and then I'd be on the sidelines hitting the inhaler before I went back out there. Started weight training with my stepfather and my cousin, doing 8 to 12 reps, pushing pretty hard, bench press, dips, just normal weight training stuff. And they kept telling me towards the last couple of reps that my lips were turning blue. So it was kind of like they kept telling me a few times, a little bit of a health scare. So went into my doctor, had an abnormal EKG. So they did, a million other tests, cardiac MRI, basically trying to find what was wrong. Had high blood pressure, ended up having a tricuspid valve regurgitation, which is where one of your valves doesn't completely close. A little bit of blood goes the wrong way. They didn't find anything too major besides the things I said. And they put me on medication, blood pressure medication. Said I would likely need to be on it the rest of my life. So from that moment on is kind of what set me down this path to where I am today. I started doing the things that were in my control, which is eating a little bit better. And it wasn't like a drastic change. It was like, not eating the Wendy's triple. I was eating fast food every day, for lunch. I work in downtown. So it was bringing my lunch a few times a week, eating a little bit healthier, just gradually changing my lifestyle, starting to exercise more. And from there, it sent me all the way down this path to where 6 years later, by that point, my life was a lot different. Went in for my checkup. They were checking me every 6 months, doing blood work, taking my blood pressure, changing my medication slightly. And I had told my doctor, I'm going to get off of my medication and see what happens. I feel a lot healthier. I've made a lot of changes. I had a blood pressure monitor, still had a full bottle of my medicine to dive in. So took my blood pressure for a week, stopped the medicine. It never went back up. And then that was 4 years ago. And since I haven't been on medication, just strictly from gradually changing my lifestyle. And I'm still on the journey now doing the same thing. So that led me into a few years ago, basically talking everybody's ear off about it. My wife, my family, anything I learned about health and nutrition, I would talk to them until their eyes glazed over. I could see they checked out. My wife is very intuitive. She had the suggestion, like, you should get into personal training. You have a lot of good information and you could provide some insight to help people out. So I started looking into personal training venues and calling different gyms locally. And at this point, I hadn't been to a gym myself in 3 or 4 years. Although I had a home gym and I was working out, I wasn't in a professional setting, just basically doing everything on my own, nutrition, exercise. So from there, called a bunch of gyms, looked into the different certifications, which ones were good, which ones were, nationally recognized. And most places just told me, get back to us once you have your certification. But there was one local gym that's actually a private training studio that had their own in-house certification and way that they train people. So they brought me in for an interview. And, I was sitting in the parking lot there for about 10 or 15 minutes. My skin was crawling, butterflies in the stomach, all the fears and self-doubt kind of came up in my head of like, what am I doing here? This gym's been voted best trainers 7 years in a row, and I had the experience on my own, but not in, practical application. So I just kind of took a few deep breaths and went in there out of my comfort zone. And that's what set me down this whole path to doing the ACSM certification a year later, reading through the book, taking notes, passing the exam. And that kind of what got me into writing my guide is I studied for the ACSM exam, bought the book, read a couple hours a day for a few months, took notes on my iPhone each chapter. And after I passed the exam, it was a really challenging exam, like more so than I thought. And I still passed, but it was pretty tough. So I looked back at the website and saw that the pass rate was only 55%. So then right around the same time, I found out you could self-publish through Kindle Direct Publishing. And just kind of like light bulb went off and the wheels started turning where maybe I could take my notes and turn it into something to help other people. So basically took all the notes on my phone, put it into a Word document, and just started waking up at 5 a.m. every morning, putting the guide together, getting input from the other personal trainers, because I still working at the gym, getting input from people, and, my wife as well. And I put the guides together and posted it. And then just from there, it's been, 3 more guides that I've done, and kind of keeping that same, scenario that I had of, making them as concise as possible, just distilling the information from those big 800-page, ACE and NASM are 800-page textbooks. ACSM is like 600-700 pages. And your review that you wrote for us on Amazon is a common theme that people say that the textbooks are overwhelming, but you still have to read those. But this kind of like gives you that focus of what you need to look for the exam. So, that was, I don't know how quick of a rundown that was, but that's my story and how I'm here.
No, that's awesome. And the thing that I really appreciate about your study guide, like you said, the information is very vast. It's a lot of content, but you simplify it. And even though you simplify it through your study guide, people can read it. But if they get stuck on something, you're also very approachable. So that was the thing that I really like. You go a step further with your customer service. I mean, if it was me writing the book, hey, look, you have the book. Don't email me on Facebook or you have the book. But no, you weren't like that. You're very approachable. And I really think you being available is what made the difference for me in the areas that really I felt stupid after I wrote you, because I was like, duh, that is right, but you helped me to see what was so obvious. So I thank you for just being approachable and for providing a study guide that is so simplified with material that can be very complex. So I thank you for that personally.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's so kind of you to say. There's a saying that more isn't always better, sometimes less. So I tried to make it as concise as possible without being confusing, just plain English. And as far as answering your questions, I found in life, not just with this, but if you seek to serve other people and help other people out, it's going to come back to you. It's a ripple effect to that. You don't have to try to change millions of lives. It could be as simple as holding the door open for somebody that needs it, smiling at somebody, saying hello. Those things go a long way. And when you set yourself to that tune and you're in that positive energy, it's like a magnet. It comes back to you. This is a perfect example. You asked me a few questions like, a couple of days before your test on Facebook. It took me 5-10 minutes to answer. And now I'm sitting here on your podcast talking to you. So this is a direct example of that. But sometimes it's not so direct. You help somebody else, they help another person. And if you do that in your life, it's going to bring good things back to you. So it's one of the things I live by.
So you and I both went after the ACSM certification, but I also know you're not limited to that with your guides. You have guides for ACE, for NASM. Tell us a little bit about some of the similarities between the certifications, as well as some of the major differences for those who are shopping around and trying to figure out which certification should they go after.
Gotcha. Yeah. So there is a lot of similar things in all of the certifications. It's not like they're reinventing the wheel. The blood flows through the heart the same way. It's all going to be the same in all the books. A lot of that science type stuff is the same, muscle locations. They do differ in how they present the information. And I would say, the ACSM was probably the hardest test as far as math. They had more math questions than the other ones. It wasn't crazy, like a lot, but you still had to work out a few formulas. NASM actually doesn't have you do any formulas. Like, you have to know what the formulas are, and there's a few questions that ask about it, but they're similar in that regard, and then also different. ACE and NASM both have a very good, they call it different things. So ACE is called an ACE Integrated Fitness Training Model, so ACE IFT, And it basically takes the person through 4 phases for cardio and resistance. And you can find out if your client's